Welcome to Nordvana. My name is Hans, and today I'm going to show you how to forge a half cube twist. Here's the material I'm going to start with. It's 16mm square bar, and the length doesn't really matter, it's up to you. I have center marked in the middle of the bar, 8mm on both sides. I have one up here, one down here, and between 150mm. 15 centimeters. Now this number may require to be more specific if you want to be really accurate. So I've done that on every side, and I'm gonna chisel between these points, all four sides. Now for this type of thing, I recommend something that's chiseled that is slightly domed. That way you can more easily walk in the groove that you're cutting. Something like this is probably better, but I'm gonna use this one because I like it. When I've done those 4 chisel cuts, I'm gonna mark up on 2 of the corners, opposite sides, where I'm going to cut with a hacksaw. So I'm going to saw in straight into those corners to those lines that I've cut with the chisel, leaving one side intact and one side cubic kind of, and then I will twist it. Now, one thing you have to consider is I want these to literally be cubes, and the width that I will have is 8mm. So I want the length this way to also be 8mm on each of these cubes. Now I have to take into account the thickness of the blade that I use, because this blade is 1mm thick, and a saw doesn't dislocate the material, it doesn't push it around, it removes it. So every cut I make, I will remove 1mm. So if I mark 8mm apart, I'll be sawing off 0.5 millimeter on each side of that cube, leaving it 7mm. Now I don't want that, and I will have to mark 9mm in between. So the saw removes 1mm, leaving us with 8mm sides on each cube. You can just wing it. It doesn't really matter, but I'm gonna try and make it as accurate as possible. So I marked up at 150mm, but that's not divided equally by 9, so I'm gonna have to take it up to 153mm. So I'm just gonna overshoot these marks that I've made slightly and just kind of wing it that way. Oh, and before I start, one thing to mention is this is a motorcycle chain, like a bike chain, but for a motorcycle, so it's very heavy, and it's attached one side of the stump going over the anvil, and on the other end there's a piece of wood that I can stand on. That way it's like I have 3 hands. If I stand on this piece of wood, this is really tight. I will be able to work on this without holding it. So I went ahead and did the remaining 3 sides, just the same way, same time, one after the other. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna mark up every 9mm from one end to the other, and hopefully we'll end up with cubic parts. Okay, so I went ahead and made all the cuts. So you see this side and the opposite side are just intact, and the other 2 sides are cut. Now the funny part is I tried to be too smart about it and account for the width of the blade, but my chisel is very thick and I didn't perfectly split the material. So I actually pushed a lot of material down and made a thick groove, which removed some of the cube width. So they are actually more close to 7 millimeters. If I had just kept with 8 millimeter increments, I would have had 7 by 7 cubes. But now I have 7 by 8 rectangulars. You live and you learn. And also my second to last cut, I flipped out with the saw and I went forward anyway. So I made a small cut next to the one I intended to make. Slightly annoying. Now one thing, these grooves are quite deep, so you can't saw all the way down to the bottom of those grooves. Then you will end up sawing in this part, which you don't want to saw into. I'm not really sure if I should try and fix that or if I should just leave it be. Can probably twist it as is, but knowing me, I would like to try and fix it and clean those like corners up, the edges between these cuts and the slit. I think I'll just try like one corner or something with this, see how it goes. Otherwise I'll just skip it and go for the twist. Okay, so it went well. I tried cleaning up the connection points with a really thin chisel, but I didn't want to go back and forth to the fire all the time. So I kind of let the material cool down too much and still worked with it. So I just bent the chisel, obviously. It was just dumb, unnecessary, because it looks good enough. I want this to be kind of a showpiece, as in I can use it to reference when talking to customers. So I want there to be more than this. So I want a finial on this part, and I want to stick with the half cube theme. So I want to squeeze down a neck with the guillotine and then kind of have soft transition into a very cubic end, like square end. And on the underside here, I want kind of a ring or something, with also sticking to the half cube theme, a soft curve on this side and like square edges on the end to try and stick to the theme. And then this will be one of the things that I can show and reference when I talk to customers, what can be done, because people don't know. Okay, so I just made a mistake. I just kind of squished the material downwards instead of forging it. So now I have kind of a lip. What I should have done is use a butcher dice instead of that guillotine, and had a sharp straight edge in here and then a lean outward there. That would make it much easier to forge out. Now, what you would do when you forge something here, you forge on the opposite side, either like this or like this. Of course, I want different things here and there, so I can't do that. So yeah, that was a mistake. I'm going to file that lip away, and as long as I don't tell anyone, no one will know. Okay, so here it is. I trimmed this part, this end, twice. It's a lot easier to remove material rather than put it back on. So whenever I'm sure what I'm doing or what I want, so I tend to keep it long and then I just trim it as I go whenever I know what I'm going for. So yeah, I just made this because it's good to have different things to show, to reference whenever you're talking to a customer. And also I think it's kind of fun to share. Maybe you learn something from it. This is kind of like a magic trick. When you don't know how it's made, it looks impressive, but whenever someone shows you, it's kind of easy. Okay, so I hope this was informative. Maybe the mistakes that I just made helps prevent you from making the same mistakes. My plan is making several of these, having like one of everything that I can come up with for reference and also to show you guys. But if you know of a specific twist or something like that you really want to see, put it in the comments and maybe I'll make it happen. Otherwise, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. Yeah, thank you for watching. If you want to support me, subscribe and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.